welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna dive into the new palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills. This is called the Nouveau palette. I received this last week and I haven't had time to review it until now. It came out while I was on vacation and I ordered it and had it shipped to my house so that it would be here when I got here, but I've just been so busy I haven't had a chance to get to it. But this is a really beautiful palette. I was so excited about it. Overall aesthetics, it's just beautiful. And I feel like this is like the upgraded version of Anastasia Beverly Hills. I feel like they're kind of modernizing somewhat. They're doing something a little different. It attracted me. I love the packaging. I love how sleek the outside is. Love this packaging. And when I saw the actual tones in here, I was all over it. Number one reason why I decided to get this palette is that this palette reminded me of the mini retro from Natasha Denona. So I fell in love with that mini retro. It's just been one of my absolute favorites from Natasha Denona. And when I saw this, this felt like it was a larger version of the mini retro. And if you look at the mini retro next to the midi retro that Natasha Denona launched, they don't really look the same. The midi kind of has like these tones in it, and the midi size, the bigger size, doesn't really have those tones. So when I saw this palette, I felt that it gave me that mini retro vibe, and I'm definitely gonna swatch this palette next to the mini retro just so that you guys can see it does look very similar to that palette. It's just a larger version. Like it's kind of just shades expanded on that color story, which I'm here for. I really wanted Natasha Denona to expand the mini retro in that color story. And don't get me wrong, I love the retro. I think it's a gorgeous palette, but it didn't really have that mini retro vibe to me, but this does. This is like the extended version of that, and I am here for it, like here for it. In the review, I'm going to create 3 eyeshadow looks for you guys, and then I'm going to compare some swatches of this palette next to a few other palettes that I have in my collection that might be similar. Now, this palette retails for $55. When you're on the Anastasia Beverly Hills website, it says that there are 3 shades in this palette that are not safe to use on the eye, and it's always funny when brands do this, especially with eyeshadow palettes, because they know that we're going to use it on the eye, but it's almost like a legal thing that they have to say that just to kind of cover their butts. The 3 shadows that are classified not safe to use on the eye is this periwinkle shade up here on the top, this kind of bone shade right here, and then this shade right here, which is kind of like a clay color. So overall, you can tell right away there are some differences when it comes to this palette versus the original palettes. The pan sizes are much bigger. Just as a comparison, so this is the Soft Glam palette. So this has 7 shades on each row. This one has 6 shades on each row. And it's a little bit smaller as far as size difference, so you can kind of see the size comparison. It's about the same length. Maybe the Soft Glam is a little bit longer, but you can see here in the height, it's just a little bit taller than the new one. But overall, this is kind of a new look. It's like a new version, like a new updated, kind of more modern version of Anastasia Beverly Hills. And I kind of feel like it's exactly what the brand was needing. They were needing to come out and do something different. And this just kind of screamed my name, and I love the packaging. It kind of gives me that contemporary vibe, and I'm here for it. It's so pretty. So this palette has 7 shades that are mattes and 7 shades that are more shimmers. Some of the shimmers are a little different. So you have like your regular shimmers, and then you have this shade right here, which has a little bit of sparkle in it. This shade is a very unique shimmer shade. It's very soft, and I've been using it on the eye to kind of build up the outer corner, and it's super buttery, super beautiful. It does leave a mess, so if that's a shade that you're considering using, I would recommend doing your eye makeup before the rest of your makeup, because I used that shade twice to kind of pack on the outer corner, and I got fallout both times. So I would just recommend, because that shadow is so dark, these mattes are a little bit different than a traditional Anastasia Beverly Hills matte. So what I've noticed right off the bat is that these are extremely buttery and much more in a soft, buttery way. And they still kind of have that powdery kick up that we're used to from Anastasia, but these are much more buttery, especially when you're swatching them and applying them. Like they all are that way. They have this like buttery, almost cream texture, but they're not a cream. And so it's a really nice formula. That's all the deets on this new palette. Let's go ahead and jump into the tutorials, and I'm going to create 3 eyeshadow looks with it. Then we will get into the swatches where I will swatch this palette and compare it to other palettes that I have. And then I will get into my final thoughts. So I'll see you guys then. So let's go into wings. I'm just gonna use my finger because I've chopped off my nails, so I don't have to worry about nails being in my way. So I'm just gonna put that like right on the lid and then blend it into the middle of the eye, kind of pulling it. That shade is so pretty. I'm gonna bring it out all the way to the outer corner. So like all the way, and kind of bringing a little bit of it into the crease. Now I'm gonna take a crease brush and I'm gonna go into the shade Fleur, and I'm going to bring that into the crease and kind of give some structure. I'm going to take a tiny bit of Liberty right here. I'm gonna bring that right here on this outer corner. That shade has a lot of pigment. So now I'm gonna dip my brush back into Fleur and just kind of use that to kind of blend it out. But it definitely gave it some dimension, didn't it? I'm gonna take the E5 from Makeup by Mario, and I'm gonna go into the shade Muse, this one right here, which is a shimmer shade. And I'm gonna put this here on this outer V, like right there, kind of creating a little bit of dimension, and then kind of blending it into the outer corner, bringing a little bit of that up and into the crease. So I'm gonna go into the shade Metro with my blending brush, but I'm only gonna put a tiny bit right here in this outer corner, like right here, just to add some of that depth in that color story. Like, oh, that's so pretty, right? I'm gonna sweep a little bit of it into and kind of blend it into the crease. Now I am going to wipe my outer corner right here. So I'm just gonna kind of clean it up. I'm gonna throw some concealer on, and then we will kind of pull this look together. So I'll be right back. I'm gonna go directly into the shade Metro, this one right here. This shade is so pretty on that lower lash line. Is that the one that you're not supposed to use on the eye? It's so perfect. Like, I love that shade. It's got a thickness to it. So there's something in the formula that it definitely has a buttery thickness. You look at that swatch. I mean, it's perfect, right? Like, this is a very, very soft, buttery, look, it can keep going. Look at that. So it's almost like a cream, but it's not. Now I'm gonna take my flat tip brush. I'm gonna go into Muse because I'm gonna put it on the lower lash line out here on this outer corner. And I'm also going to bring it on the upper lash line just to add that depth. Okay, so I am back, and this is the final look for look number 1. The eyelash is kind of hanging on by a thread, but I'm gonna be taking it off anyway, so there's really no point in, you know, making it stay on. But I really love the way that this eye look turned out. It's really pretty, and it does give me the mini retro vibes. It does. Maybe it's a little darker, but it gives me the mini retro vibes. So we'll see, but I love this palette so far. As easy as it was to use, I'm getting more and more excited to use it and play with it. That's it for look number 1. Let's go ahead and jump into look number 2. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into look number 2. I'm gonna go straight into Liberty, kind of bring it up and into the crease. So I'm just gonna place that shadow down. I'm just gonna softly kind of blend that into the crease. So I'm actually really loving the tone of this shade, and it blends easily. I want to use Belle or Hope. Either one of those would go with this. I'm gonna go into Belle just because it's above it and it's such a pretty shade, but either or would work. Seriously, it's just one of those shades. So I'm gonna wipe off the Rephr number 1, and I am going to dip into that and place that right over top. That shimmer blends beautifully. And actually, when you get it on the eye, it's a little bit more golden than olive, which is surprising. I'm gonna tip the brush into that shade and sweep that up and over and into the crease. And then I'm gonna take another brush and kind of buff over the edges. Now I'm gonna kind of clean up. So I'm gonna wipe it. It's so pretty, right? Now I'm gonna dip into the shade Muse, and I'm gonna bring that right out here on this outer corner using a flat tip brush just to kind of add some depth and structure to it. And then I'm gonna take that same brush and kind of blend over top of that. I'm gonna take the flat definer from Sonia G, and I'm gonna go into Isle. I'm gonna place that right here on the center just to kind of make it pop. I'm gonna wipe the brush off and then blend from there. Yeah, I made a mess with that. Yeah, so Muse always makes a mess no matter how I use it. So just know that going into using Muse, I would do your eye makeup first because it does make a mess. Now I'm gonna go straight into Liberty, and I am going to focus that right up here on the lower lash line. And then kind of blend it into the outer corner, kind of trying to keep, I wanna kind of keep that lift. I'm just gonna go over this edge, kind of blend it. I love about this is that Belle works so beautifully in the crease. It's a very soft, like all the shimmers are. They're so soft, there's no chunk to them. I was able to take a big fluffy brush and just kind of go over, and it just kind of like went into all the grooves and blended beautifully. It's just one of those types of shadows, and it's just so perfect. I just love it. Okay, so this is the final look for look number 2, and it's so soft and really pretty. I'm excited to brighten things up and kind of play with that really pretty peachy tone on the third and final look. So that's it for look number 2. Let's go ahead and jump into look number 3, which will be the final look. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into the third and final look. I'm gonna first go into Fleur, this one right here. I'm gonna use that as the base color. So I'm just gonna take the BK Beauty 203, and I'm gonna place that all over the lid. And then blend it up and into the crease. It's such a pretty color, you guys. That shade is really pretty all on its own. And I also feel like Liberty, the one like next to it, that green, like that sage green, that one is kind of a one and done shadow too. Now I'm gonna take a small brush. I'm gonna take that Makeup by Mario, the E5, and I'm gonna go into Metro. I'm gonna kind of bring that on the inner corner, kind of blending it into the inner. And then I'm gonna bring that on the outer corner as well. Kind of just deepening things up a little bit. And then go back to that blending brush with no extra product and just kind of blend all those together. I am going to take my Smith 253 and I'm gonna go into Isle. This is the shade I've been most excited to use. And I'm gonna bring that right here on the center. I'm gonna go back to the E5 and I'm gonna go into Metro. And I am gonna kind of blend out some of these harsh edges that I got going on here. I'm gonna now grab a small smudge brush. This is a 204 from BK Beauty. And I'm gonna go into Liberty. I'm gonna tap that kind of out here to kind of give a little bit of dimension. I'm gonna bring a little bit of that on the inner corner. If I can do it without my lens focusing on my mirror. My lens keeps focusing on my mirror. But I'm just kind of bringing that right at the base of the lashes, and then it kind of has like a blowout effect into the look, if that makes sense. Got the other eye done. Let's move on to the lower lash line, and then I'm gonna put the rest of my makeup on. I'm just gonna go directly into Metro with a pencil brush, and I'm just gonna smoke that in and just kind of blend it out. And I'm going in kind of heavy with this. I had high hopes for Isle, but I feel like it's just not quite what I was wanting it to be. I don't know, there's just something about it. I think it's really pretty, but I was wanting a little bit more of a, I don't know, there's something about it. It's pretty, but I think it could have been done a little bit different. I was actually thinking about taking that rose gold, which is Lily, and taking a small little brush and maybe like bringing that like right in those inner corners just to kind of give it something. I feel like putting Lily right there kind of blended it out and kind of gave it a little bit more of a moment. I don't know. I actually quite like the way that that looks, having that sparkle, because the Lily has a little bit of a sparkle to it. I think that looks so much prettier. This is what it looks like with Lily on the edges and without. And I just kind of feel like the sparkle from Lily brought it together. I really like the way that looks. I'm wondering what Lily would look like if I did it here on the center, on the bottom right here. Okay, so I am back. This is the final look. I wanted to share with you guys the lipstick that I decided to pair with this eyeshadow look. So I grabbed my Tom Ford lip liner in the shade Extort. I actually bought a bunch of these. They were on sale last summer. It's a really pretty kind of purplish brown kind of tone. And of course I'm wearing Bare Nectar, which is the shade that I created with Krisha Nadet. This lipstick goes so perfect with this palette, especially if you're using the shade Floor or Metro. Like, you can see they match perfectly, right? I was just told that they have limited quantities left on my lipstick and lip gloss bundle. So if you guys are interested, I will link them in the description box down below. It was intended to be a limited edition set. So if you guys are wanting to pick it up, I recommend it. We are almost sold out, which is pretty incredible. So I just wanted to let you guys know, but that's it for look number 3. Let's go ahead and jump into the swatches. And I'm going to swatch this palette next to a few other palettes that I have in my collection that might be similar in tone. And then I will jump into my final thoughts. So I will see you guys then. Okay, so I'm back. I do hope that those swatches and comparisons were helpful. Let me go ahead and get into my final thoughts. So as you saw in the swatches, this palette was exactly what I thought it was going to be. It's definitely an extended version of the Mini Retro from Natasha Denona. I fell madly in love with this Mini Retro. Shades came out of nowhere and really surprised me. I fell so madly in love with this, and this is still to this day one of my absolute favorites from Natasha Denona, just because it's such a unique color story. I never would have thought to bring these tones together, but as you saw in the swatches, this is definitely an extended version of the Mini Retro. My two favorite ABH palettes and the palettes that I've continued to use over the years is the Soft Glam and the Jackie Aina palette. This Jackie Aina palette is, in my opinion, one of the best that ABH ever did. The way that she correlated these shades, they're so, so beautiful. And I always love and revert back to the Soft Glam because it just is that soft glam. It's very easy, everyday type of looks. This is now going to be one of my new favorites from ABH. I love the overall aesthetic of it. It kind of has that really pretty earthy kind of feel to it. And I love the tones in here. And I could have went on and on and on creating looks with this palette. There's so many different ways to combine these shades together. The sky's the limit when it comes to this palette and the overall vibe of it. It just works. And all of these tones were very well thought out. And even adding that pop of periwinkle purple, priceless. Like they just did a fantastic job. And this is what ABH needed to do. They were starting to kind of get lost in the sea of makeup. For me, on a personal level, from a makeup lover, ABH hasn't really done anything lately that I've been super excited about, but this palette kind of brought it back to life. It's definitely the Mini Retro on a larger scale. I mean, look at these tones. They're together. Like this is everything that I wanted the midi size from Natasha Denona to be. And it wasn't, and that's okay. But this is like the Mini Retro, just in a more expanded version of it. And I am so, so, so excited to have this. And I love it. It all performed beautifully. I didn't have any issues with the shades. And in fact, I might even go as far as to say this is probably one of their better formulas. Now, I haven't bought any of their big, large palettes, you know, the ones that are really colorful and stuff. So I don't know if those palettes have this formula, but this formula is a little bit different from like these palettes. It's much more of a creamier texture, much more of a creamy base. Shimmers are much softer and much more buttery. Like it's just an overall A+, 5 out of 5 palette. If this was on your radar and you were kind of thinking about it, it's a fantastic palette. And it kind of got me excited about ABH again. In a way, I don't know. It was a good move on their part. They nailed it out of the ballpark and I'm here for it. So excited about it. That's it for the video, you guys. Sound off down below in the comment section. Let us know how many of you guys have already picked this up because I know I'm late to the game on my review because I was out of town for so long. But sound off down below. Let us know how many of you guys have got this palette and what has been your experience with it. Are you guys loving it? Or are you not so much loving it? I love hearing your guys' experience. Like I've always said, your guys' opinions matter just as much as anyone else coming on behind a camera and sharing it. The comment section is priceless information, and I love it so much when you guys share all of the information and all of your tips and tricks and all the things that you guys love because you guys always have great recommendations. So definitely share with us in the comment section down below your experience with this new palette. That's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me in today's video. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys all in my next video. Love you. Bye.